Families in Gaza are marking Eid al-Fitr with little reason to celebrate, as Israel tightens its grip on the besieged territory. The holy festival, traditionally a time of joy and feasting, has become another reminder of the harsh realities facing Gaza's residents. Israeli authorities have implemented even stricter controls on goods and humanitarian aid entering the territory, creating severe shortages of basic necessities. Essential items like food, medicine, and fuel are becoming increasingly scarce, forcing families to make impossible choices during what should be their most cherished holiday. The restrictions have particularly impacted children, who typically receive new clothes and gifts during Eid celebrations. Aid organizations report that the tightened chokehold is pushing Gaza's already fragile infrastructure to a breaking point, with hospitals struggling to maintain services and schools facing closure. This escalation represents a significant deterioration in conditions for Gaza's 2 million residents, who have endured decades of blockade. The international community will be watching closely as humanitarian concerns mount and calls for intervention grow louder. A Mexican teenager has died while in immigration custody at a Florida jail holding IC detainees, marking the second death in federal immigration detention this week. Royer Perez Jimenez's death has reignited concerns about conditions and medical care within the nation's immigration detention system. The young migrant was being held at a facility that contracts with Immigration and Customs Enforcement to house detainees awaiting deportation proceedings. Details surrounding the circumstances of his death remain under investigation, but advocacy groups are demanding immediate answers about the medical treatment he received. This tragic incident comes as immigration authorities face mounting scrutiny over detention facility standards and healthcare protocols. The back-to-back deaths represent a disturbing pattern that has prompted congressional Democrats to call for emergency hearings and facility inspections. Immigration detention has become a flashpoint in national debates over border policy and human rights protections, with thousands of migrants currently held in similar facilities across the country. This case could trigger broader reforms to detention practices and oversight mechanisms. Labour's Brexit strategy is undergoing a fundamental shift as the party pivots from courting Leave voters to embracing a closer relationship with the European Union, according to polling expert Sir John Curtice. This strategic realignment marks a dramatic departure from the party's post-2019 approach of trying to win back Brexit-supporting constituencies that abandoned Labour in the last general election. The new direction focuses on rebuilding ties with Brussels through enhanced trade agreements, regulatory alignment, and potentially rejoining certain EU programs. However, this pivot carries significant electoral risks, particularly in traditional Labour heartlands where Brexit support remains strong. Political analysts warn that alienating Leave voters could cost the party crucial seats in Northern England and Wales, regions that were instrumental in the original Brexit vote. The strategy reflects Labour's calculation that Remain-supporting voters represent a more reliable long-term coalition, especially among younger demographics and urban constituencies. Sir John Curtice suggests this gamble could either consolidate Labour's position with pro-EU voters or backfire spectacularly if Brexit-backing constituencies feel permanently abandoned by the party they once called home. Iran's women's national football team received a hero's welcome in Tehran following their dramatic return from the Asian Cup, where several players had sought asylum in Australia. The team's homecoming caps weeks of international crisis and diplomatic negotiations that threatened to tear the squad apart permanently. During the tournament, multiple players applied for political asylum, citing fears over their safety and freedom in Iran's restrictive political climate. The asylum requests created a diplomatic standoff between Iranian authorities, Australian officials, and international football governing bodies. Iranian officials worked to convince the players to return, reportedly offering guarantees for their security and continued participation in international competition. The team's arrival in Tehran was met with carefully orchestrated celebrations, as authorities sought to project normalcy and unity. This situation highlights the ongoing tensions between Iran's government and its female athletes, who have increasingly become symbols of resistance and women's rights. The international sports community will be monitoring closely to ensure the players face no retaliation for their asylum attempts, as their treatment could set precedents for future cases involving athletes from authoritarian regimes. Iranian women's football players are being celebrated as heroes in Tehran after navigating through weeks of international crisis that threatened their careers and personal safety. The national team members returned to a carefully orchestrated welcome ceremony, complete with flowers, banners, and government officials eager to demonstrate unity and support. This celebration comes after several team members made headlines by seeking asylum during their recent international tournament, creating a diplomatic emergency that required delicate negotiations. The players had expressed concerns about returning to Iran, citing the country's restrictive policies toward women in sports and broader societal freedoms. Iranian authorities worked behind the scenes to address these concerns and secure the team's return, reportedly offering assurances about their future participation in international competitions. The homecoming event serves multiple purposes for Iranian leadership, projecting an image of reconciliation while celebrating the team's athletic achievements. Women's sports in Iran continue to face significant restrictions and cultural challenges, making these athletes important symbols for broader social change. The resolution of this crisis may influence how other Iranian female athletes approach international competition and their relationship with the state.